This is Ethan, and I'm here with Dave, and together we are Dave and Ethan's 2000-inch Weird Al podcast, episode 208-inch.
On this episode, we talk about Weird Al's appearance at the New Yorker Festival and everything else we did over this past weekend.
It's Dave and Ethan's 2000-inch Weird Al podcast.
It's a podcast about Weird Al.
It's Dave and Ethan's 2000-inch Weird Al podcast.
Seriously, the whole podcast is about Weird
It's
Al.
Dave and Ethan's 2000-inch Weird Al podcast.
You don't have to listen, but we're glad you are.
Dave and Ethan's 2000-inch Weird Al podcast.
Dave, it was so great to see you this past weekend. What an absolute blast it all was.
Oh, absolutely. Not only did we get to see a live Weird Al event, we also got to meet another celebrity that we are both big fans of.
Plus, we got to play...
Now, wait a minute, Ethan. Let's save it for our full rundown, because right now it is time for What's Happening in Weird Al Related News!
Well, skipping the obvious in what's happening for our full rundown, we also wanted to talk about something Weird Al posted on social media ahead of this weekend's appearance in New York City.
Yes, he shared a photo posing with Eric Idle and Puddles the Clown while they were at Pee Wee Herman's Celebration of Life event.
The event for Pee Wee Herman was held at the famous Magic Castle in Los Angeles, which is known for their exclusivity and their strict dress code. And I think that's why Weird Al was wearing a suit and tie and not one of his iconic Hawaiian shirts.
We're not exactly sure how Puddles got in the door without formal attire, but maybe they make exceptions for sad clowns.
The Audible original Third Eye we had previously talked about on the podcast has finally released.
The book by Felicia Day features tons of great celebrities and comedians doing voices, including our pal Jonah Ray and Weird Al himself.
It looks to be just under 7 hours long, and it's available to purchase and listen to right now on audible.com.
And this Halloween, there is a really super neat event happening in Nashville, Tennessee.
The 5 Spot will be hosting a double bill featuring Afton Wolf's Idiot Box Show, which features tributes to TV theme songs, and Weird Pals, a band featuring a rotating crew of local and national favorite musicians covering their favorite Weird Al songs.
We got in touch with one of the organizers of the event, and they will be selling posters of their flyer, which features a really cool image of Weird Al and a bat.
It sounds like a really fun show. I'm bummed that neither of us will be able to attend, so if you will be there, please let us know all about it on the 347 Spatula Hotline.
I just really hope one of the bands covers the Weird Al show theme so that they can be on both bills.
This episode is brought to you in part by Vegan Burrito Restaurant Burrito Burrito, home of the 2-pound double wrapped in a quesadilla Burrito Burrito, and Wizard Burger in Albany, New York. Come on down to Burrito Burrito and Burrito Burrito, your Burrito Burrito, and Wizard Burger for mouthwatering loaded, dare I say, beefy vegan burgers. From Albany to Uranus, Burrito Burrito and Wizard Burger feed the hungry with out-of-this-world plant-based real food, always vegan style. Visit burritosquare.com and wizardburger.com to order ahead. Attention Grammy voters, or people who know Grammy voters, Grammy voting starts today and runs through October 20th. Dave and Ethan's 2000-inch Weird Al podcast endorses the following albums and recordings. For Best Compilation Soundtrack for Visual Media, Weird the Al Yankovic Story Original Soundtrack. For Best Song Written for Visual Media, Now You Know by Weird Al Yankovic. And for Best Folk Album of Wooden Spirit, American Guitar Stories by Jim Chemo West. We hope you'll agree this is the most important vote of our collective lifetimes. So please vote and harass the voters in your lives to vote for these fine albums and recordings.
All right, so before we get to Saturday where the actual main event happens, Ethan, I think you should tell us a little bit about your Friday and what happened.
So on Friday, I get an email from none other than Andy Borowitz.
Wow.
I was not expecting that. So I actually have worked with Andy in the past, and we've actually talked about Weird Al, and he knows I'm a big fan, and we've talked about Weird Al's holiday cards. So Friday morning, he sent me an email. He said, "Hey, Ethan, I happen to have 2 free tickets to the event I'm hosting this weekend. If you'd like them, or if you know someone who could use them." So I let him know, wow, that's amazing to hear from you. I most certainly already have my tickets and I'll be there, but I'll find someone to use them for sure. I'm sure I can find someone. And I think it took me maybe like 30 minutes. I got in touch with our good friends, Adrian and Ann, and they were thrilled. So I was able to get the tickets to them.
Yeah, they were both very excited to get those tickets because I had to let them know about the event a while back when we first found out about it. But Adrian and Ann thought they had some conflict, and then, all these other things were happening. And by the time they figured out they didn't have the conflict, the tickets were already sold out. So they were really bummed that they were going to miss the show. And then out of nowhere, you as a white knight comes along and makes their weekend.
It was awesome. So I profusely thanked Andy, and I told him to break an accordion at the show.
I love it.
Friday night, after work, Kate and I drove down. We got an Airbnb pretty close to you, Dave, in New Jersey. And on the way down, we listened to my appearance on Normal Gossip, the subscriber-only episode, which is really fun because I do talk a bit about the podcast, and I do share a piece of Weird Al fandom-related gossip. And Kate hadn't, this was her first time hearing it, and I hadn't heard it since we recorded it. As soon as I started telling the gossip, Kate's like, "Oh, I know what you're going to say." And yeah, she was right. So she was very excited.
Awesome. All right, so you got in a little late on Friday, so we didn't get together until Saturday morning, where we went out to breakfast at a diner, which was like right next to your Airbnb. And,
oh, yeah. If it wasn't raining out, we totally would have walked, because it was only like a block away. But unfortunately, we had rain pretty much all day Saturday, which isn't ideal for walking around New York City. Or New Jersey.
No, not at all.
We had a nice breakfast, and then Kate and I went back with you and Jackie to your house, and you and I we each exchanged a box full of Weird Al stuff that we've been saving for each other.
Yeah, sometimes as collectors, what we'll do is we'll see something that we know the other person will want, so we will purchase it, or purchase two of them or whatever, pick up extras. And then once we do finally get together in person, we have this big exchanging event. It's just like Christmas morning where we're opening stuff that we have for each other. And it's a lot of fun. You get to see all stuff you've been waiting to give to the other person for a long time. And you get to pick up stuff you have, but you haven't been able to actually formally receive it yet.
Now, one thing I wanted to talk about, it's amazing because it literally arrived in the mail like an hour before I got on the road on Friday. It was a special gift from past guest of the podcast and editor of Weird the Al Yankovic Story, Jamie Kennedy. She sent us each a copy of Cinema Editor magazine, where she's interviewed about Weird Al in there. So it's certainly not an easy magazine to come by unless you're already subscribed to it. So it was really nice of her to send us each a copy. So big shout out to Jamie Kennedy.
Yes, thank you, Jamie.
Now, I got to visit something new in your Weird Al collection space. Does it even count as a Weird Al room if now it's over 2 rooms, Dave, technically? Is it the Weird Al floor?
It is. Its entire floor of my house is all dedicated to Weird Al. I call it the Weird Al room and the Weird Al annex.
Yes.
The pinball machine, Weird Al's Museum of Natural Hilarity, is set up in the annex. But yes, you got to play my version of pinball. You and Kate got to play my actual pinball game.
Yeah, I played it a few months ago when I was visiting UHF, but it's such a fun game that I've just been completely itching to play ever since. And I really sucked the first round. Maybe the first round I played, I did bad. Kate kicked my butt. But Dave, you've had a lot of practice, so you kicked both of our butts.
It really wasn't fair. I mean, I've been playing pretty much hours every day, nonstop, since I got the machine. So yeah, I've picked up some mad skills on pinball over the past few weeks. So yeah, it really wasn't a fair competition.
I think we ended up playing at least an hour or so, and it was nice because by the end of the hour, I was getting pretty good, and I was even doing stuff I don't think I accomplished when I was playing at Jeff's house. Like, I unlocked the Germs multi-ball, which I don't even think I knew there was a Germs multi-ball, so that was really awesome.
Yes, well, you're always welcome to come back, you and Kate, anytime to play Weird Al's Museum of Natural Hilarity and rematch the pinball wizard over here at the Rossi residence.
Yeah, I just wish you didn't make me pay a quarter each time I played.
I got to make my money back somehow.
Oh, so we actually wanted to get to the city not too late because it was a 5:30 show, which was kind of early, I guess, for a Saturday night. So we decided to take off a little early to account for traffic and parking and all that stuff, and also wanted to get there early enough to get a good seat.
Yeah, I think they had a 5:30 show because they apparently had multiple events going on throughout the day at Webster Hall. So I guess just that's when Weird Al's time slot happened to fall at 5:30. Yeah, I think we ended up leaving around 2 o'clock. I had gotten a text from Vicky DeVries, Rhymes with Cheese, that her and Nancy Lowry were in New York City already. They had both come in on trains from separate locations, and we decided we'd go in so we could meet up with Nancy and Vicky. And I knew Vicky was coming back, staying at my house. I was going to drop her off at the train station in New Jersey on Sunday morning. So we decided we would head in with the four of us, you, Kate, myself, and Jackie, and knowing we'd be bringing Vicky back, we decided to take 2 cars, so we went in 2 separate cars.
And luckily, later we'll find out how lucky we were that we made that decision.
Yes, it worked out pretty well, but probably not for great reasons, but it did work out very well.
So we got into the city and we parked, and wherever Kate and I parked, as we're walking to the venue, of course in the rain, we walked through this festival. I think it was like the Chinatown. It was some kind of food festival, and they had all sorts of vendors, and it was pretty neat because they had shut down the roads and stuff. So we walked right through that, and then we got to the venue. I think we got to the venue maybe like a minute or two before you guys. And they actually had a big stand set up where they were giving out copies of the New Yorker magazine.
Yeah, that was pretty cool. You got free magazines over at the New Yorker magazine booth. Yeah, we ended up parking at a different parking garage than you did, and it was in the opposite direction. And I'll have a funny story about that when we go to pick up our car. But yeah, it was actually only like a block or 2 away, so it was very convenient. It was pouring rain though, so it's never fun to walk in the rain in New York City. But we were fortunate didn't have to walk very far to get to the Webster Hall.
Yeah, we were only a couple blocks away, so it really wasn't that bad. But we got the magazines, and then shortly after we saw you guys, and we ran into a couple of people right away, right outside Webster Hall, even though we were a couple hours early. I guess there was a Spike Lee event going on in the venue just before the Weird Al event. So we ran into Wendy, who we've met a couple times. She's kind of out based in the Chicago area, and I know she was on at least one of the bonus episodes from earlier this year, if you remember. She was
yes.
She was in the room with like 15 people and me.
Yes, special guest Wendy Lippert. And before I even picked up the New Yorker magazine, the very first person I saw standing in line was our good friend Ron Jr., who has done lots of Weird Al related artwork.
Yeah, and he even did a really cool piece for our podcast that he posted in the group maybe about a month ago. And it was actually like this cool crossover piece where if you look at our comic and you look at the one that he made for the Beard Al podcast, it sort of matched up. And there were some kind of crossover jokes, which was pretty fun. So we saw him, and there was this woman who I didn't recognize, and she said her name was Linda, and she's like, "Are you guys here for the Weird Al event?" I think she looked around and saw that we were all wearing like Weird Al like shoes and shirts and stuff, and
right.
We're like, "Yes, we are." And she's like, "I finally found my people."
Yes, I never met Linda before either, but she was a lot of fun for the brief time we did get to hang out with her. She did say that she came to the event alone because she didn't think any of her friends would be into it. So she was very glad to see other Weird Al fans. She kept calling us, she kept calling us, my people, my people. It was great.
It's so nice when you finally meet other obsessed Weird Al fans, you know? I can totally relate with Linda. Nice to meet you, Linda. Of course, the aforementioned Vicky and Nancy were there. And I should say that Vicky does live in California, but she was already on the East Coast visiting family. So it was just a train ride away. So she could not miss the event.
Yeah, just a train ride away. You know, she came 4 hours or so on the train. That was just the train ride away.
Well,
but yes.
It's better than a train from California.
It was totally worth it, I'm sure, to see Weird Al.
It was raining out, and we were a couple hours early, and the people like working the event, they didn't seem to have a good concept of what time the doors would open for the early entry people. So there were like a couple different levels of tickets. There was like early entry, which is what we got because it said you get in 15 minutes before anyone else so you can get the best seats.
Yep.
And then general admission, where the seats are first come, first serve, and you might have to stand only. And then I think there were even standing room only tickets. So they were like, oh, the early entry people, they get in at 4:50. And I was like, okay, what time does general admission start if early entry is at 4:50? And then the guy's like, 4:50. And I was like, so they were at the same time? He's like, oh, I guess, no, I don't know. So they really didn't have any idea. So we're like, we figured we didn't need to stand out in the rain for like 2 hours, but maybe we could stand in the rain for like, 45 minutes or something.
Right. Yeah, there were two lines. They had one line which was set up for the early entry people, and then there's one line that was set up for general admission. So, yes, the early entry people were going to get in a little bit earlier based on where they were standing in line.
But we decided we didn't really care to, wait out in the rain the entire time. So right across the street, like literally across the street, was something called Amsterdam Billiards Hall. And we're like, oh, well, it's probably, at least a dry place to hang out, even though I don't think I've ever played billiards in my life. I mean, maybe as a kid, like joking around, but I don't know if I'd even know how to play.
I've had a lot of experience working with billiards tables, so I'm very well aware of the rules. But yeah, it was a dry place to hang out. We did head into the billiards hall, and it turned out to be really nice. They had a little seating area where you could sit and just kind of have drinks and chat and stuff. So it was a great place to hang out.
Yeah, I think most of the people who were there for the billiards. So the kind of separate bar was pretty empty. So we got a nice table and got some drinks and some food. And Dave, you pointed out as soon as we walked in that, there's like 50 TVs all around the little bar area. And there's a football game going on, and the score was 27-27.
Yeah, it was crazy. There was all these TV screens around, and it was really funny because I did notice immediately the score was 27-27, which was obviously 27 is Weird Al's number, so that was fortuitous that we were there. But it was really weird. Like all the TVs except for one were in color, and Ron's like, "Why is that TV in black and white?" And we never figured out why they had one black and white TV in the entire bar.
I don't think they even sell black and white TVs anymore, do they?
I know. Where did they get this? It was like a flat screen black and white television. I was really impressed.
I have to assume that someone hit a billiard ball into that TV. That's the only real explanation here.
That must have been some wild trick shot because the billiard tables were nowhere near the bar area.
So we got some pretzels, and I think Jackie ordered the pretzels, so I didn't really even see them on the menu. And then it came with a couple different dips, and you opened them, so I didn't really see it. And so I saw two dips, and I'm like, oh, I wonder what these are. So I try one, and it tasted like mustard, and then I try the other one, and I'm like, that tastes pretty similar. I was thinking to myself, like, oh, maybe we should rank, these dips like we did in that secret episode when we were in Washington. But no, it turns out that both were the same exact kind of dip.
Yeah, I actually opened them up without realizing they were the same exact. I probably could have only opened up one of them. Yeah. But yeah, they were both honey mustard dip, and I just opened them both. And then I did the same thing. I dipped the pretzel in one and said, okay, that's honey mustard. That's nice. I dipped the pretzel in the other. I said, that's honey mustard. Then I looked at the actual tags on the containers, and I was like, oh, they're both exactly the same. So I guess I only needed to open one.
Now, what was also really cool is Ron brought along a couple gifts for us, Dave. He printed out a multi-panel original comic book called The Adventures of Dave and Ethan.
Yeah, it was really cool. It's like this 3-page comic book. And of course, we'll have to read it maybe one time on the podcast, maybe a bonus episode or a special secret episode or something for Patreon.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun, and we are attempting to kidnap Weird Al for for one reason or another. I think it's to add to our collection. So
yes,
we'll have to. It will be fun to read that sometime on the air.
And it's a cliffhanger because at the very bottom it says "Until next time." ... So I'm looking forward to seeing what the sequel is.
Yeah, that was fun. And then Ron also brought along some really cool artwork he did, and one of them was that actual Dave and Ethan artwork that he posted to the group about a month ago. And Dave, you bought the only copy. Thanks a lot.
Hey, you snooze, you lose. You got to get in there first. Yeah, he said he had only had one copy with him, so I said, I'm definitely taking that. I looked through the rest of his artwork, and I did pick up a drawing he did, John Bermuda Schwartz, one of Steve J, and one of Jim Chemo West, all different poses. And Ron was kind, and he signed all my artwork for me.
Ron did say he'll print another copy, so I'm gonna buy a copy, and I'm gonna buy some of the other ones by mail. So Dave, you will not have the only one moving forward. You just currently have the only one. Earlier in the day, I had seen that Tim from the Weird Pals podcast was going to be in New York. He usually lives in California, and he was going to be attending the event. So I reached out to him, and I told him we would be at the event, and I let him know that we were at the billiards hall. So he actually came and joined us. So it was really nice to finally meet Tim and I believe his girlfriend Justine. And they hung out with us for a bit before the show.
Yeah, it was really cool to get to meet Tim. First time I was meeting him as well, and Justine as well. And they were really cool, fun to hang out with. And yes, they came all the way from California just for this. And they made a vacation out of it. They said they were hanging around in New York and doing other fun stuff as well.
Yeah, well, it wasn't just for this. I think it was a happy coincidence that they were in town and they were able to grab tickets. So super cool. That is really fun. I think they're based out of San Francisco area. So about 4:30, we figured we would face the rain and actually head out and wait in line, and it had stopped raining by then.
Yeah, it was great. We didn't have to wait outside in the rain at all. We were directly across the street from the theater, and when we walked outside, there was quite a line actually had already formed. So people were, while we were inside the billiards hall, we're lining up. It went from 0 to maybe about 30 or 40 people in line by the time we got out of the billiards hall.
Yeah, and then there were even more people in the non-early entry line as well. And right at the very front, the first person in line in the early entry line was none other than our good friend Bob Groder and his girlfriend Selmira. So it was really cool to see them. It's been a while since I saw them.
I don't think we've seen Bob since last year on the unfortunate return of the ridiculously self-indulgent ill-advised vanity tour. So that was really nice to see Bob and Selmira again.
And not too far behind Bob was Jeff McClelland, our good buddy, and he had made up some really cool Weird Al Radio stickers and pins. So that was really cool. He gave us stickers and pins that said Weird Al Radio. And I was handing Jeff some wooden nickels, and I pulled a couple extra out of my bag. And so I saw some kid and his dad sitting in front of them. So I gave them some nickels too, and they're like, what is this? And then they're like, oh, Darwin, Minnesota. They finally got it. And it's funny because later on, I saw them again and they're like, are you Ethan from Dave and Ethan's Weird Al podcast? I was like, yeah. They're like, oh, we're big fans. They listen to the podcast. And I didn't get their names, unfortunately, but I guess they were actually at that Poughkeepsie show where Al and the band played our theme song. And so they talked about how cool that was to hear the theme song and how crazy it must have been for us.
I love it. That's awesome. So great to always meet another listener. And we always see them at the Weird Al event, so that's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's always great to see Jeff because he always seems to have some sort of Weird Al related present for us when he sees us.
He's like Santa Claus.
I know, it's great. And the pins are awesome. You mentioned they were from the Weird Al Radio stunt that happened at the end of last year and lasted maybe like 8 days, but it made such an impression on Jeff that he had to print up stickers and pins.
So while we were in line, they checked our tickets and they gave us wristbands. And Kate and I were chatting with Wendy, who was in line, And Dave, I don't know where you and Jackie went, but like the lady's like, well, where are the other two people? And I'm like, right over there. And then like you guys were walking away and she's like, where? I'm like, there. And she like had to run after you to give you your wristband.
Yeah, well, I noticed that our good friends Adrian and Ann were in line a little bit further down, so Jackie and I went over to talk to them, and then we kept getting pushed by security further and further back to the end of the line, so it was Jackie and myself and Ron were the very last three people at the end of the early entry tickets line. So they had to walk all the way down to the end to give us our wristbands. And they were very confused because one person was like, oh, well, you don't have tickets. And I'm like, no, I don't have the tickets. Ethan has the tickets and he's way up there. And it took them a while to get sorted out. And then finally somebody just ran over, stuck wristbands on our arms, and everything was fine after that.
Oh, well, I'm glad you got in. So it wasn't too long. They let us in, and so they said, you're going to go inside and you're going to wait in the lobby, and then we're going to line you up again, and then you'll go into the theater and you can get your seats. So we went through security. I took a look at the merchandise to see if there's any Weird Al name merchandise or anything like that. But unfortunately, there was no event-specific merchandise. It was just the generic New Yorker t-shirts and puzzles and bags and that kind of stuff. So I told them, hey, it would have been really great to have, a list of attendees or something on here. And they're like, oh, maybe next year. And I was like, well, hopefully Weird Al's there next year, because I won't care if you do it next year.
Yeah, I really wasn't expecting any Weird Al related merchandise to show up, but yeah, I'm glad you checked, as you always do whenever we go to any sort of event that Weird Al's involved in.
So we lined up, and Dave, you and Jackie, me, Kate, and Adrian and Ann all got together, and we had a nice time just hanging out, chatting.
Yeah.
It was kind of weird that we had to wait in line to get inside, to wait in line to go in the theater to wait for the show to start, but whatever. Whatever works for them. So we got in, and I was really happy with our seats. We were like third row center.
Oh, we had great seats. We had wonderful seats. They were perfect. They were a third row set. I love sitting in the center.
Yes.
And I think I was about as dead center as you could get, so it was perfect. And I think being 3 rows back was actually pretty nice because it was a pretty raised stage. So I don't know what it was like sitting in the front row, but sitting in the third row, you could see the stage perfectly. So it worked out very well.
Yeah, I was really happy with the visibility, and it was, very bare bones. I mean, they didn't have any more than they needed, just 2 chairs. There was a big projection screen, and there was kind of like a slideshow going on, and every couple slides it said they were taking questions, and you could text your questions in. But specifically, Dave, they did not say that they were taking questions for the show. It just said, text your questions too. So I texted, where's the bathroom? And they never answered that question. So I'm still wondering. I never did see the bathroom.
I could tell you it was down on the first floor. We didn't mention we did have to go up a flight of stairs as well to get to the Webster Hall theater that this one was located in. Apparently, I guess there's multiple theaters in Webster Hall or something. I don't know. I'm not sure. I've never been there before. Apparently, Jackie has spent a lot of time there, though.
Yeah, I'd never been there, and it just seemed like a big confusing mess to me because it's like just a lot of stairs, and if they hadn't like ushered us around, I don't know that people would have found the where we were supposed to go. So, maybe it was good that they had us line up 15 different times.
Yeah, the big group of us were sitting in the row. I know it was you and Kate, and then me and Jackie, and Adrian and Ann and Ron, and all of us were sitting right next to each other in the third row there.
Yeah, and then like directly in front of Kate and I was Nancy and Vicky, and then right ahead of them were that father and son who I gave wooden nickels to, and right next to them were Bob and Selmyra and Jeff McClellan. So it was like, it was kind of nice to have like this big kind of clump of people. And what was really incredible is I saw my friend Dan Pasternak walking in, and I knew he was coming to the event, and I saw him walk in the door, and I ran over, I gave him a hug, and I was like, where are you sitting? He's like, right here. And he was literally sitting 1 seat away from where I was sitting. And
cool.
yeah, it was just by complete chance. but there was a guy between Dan and I, and I felt bad because I was like talking to Dan a lot. And this random single, just one person was right between us. But the guy eventually turned to me. He's like, "Hey, are you from Dave and Ethan's 2000-inch Weird Al podcast?"
Oh, no way.
Yeah, so turns out the guy I was sitting next to is this really neat dude, Eric. He lives in Brooklyn, and he's like a video editor, and he works on a number of things, including, he said, the Christmas movies from the Hallmark Channel. So he said he said something like they're not great movies, but there's a lot of them, so he's got a lot of work,
Oh, they're always putting out Christmas movies on the Hallmark Channel, so I think Eric's set for a while. As long as he wants that job, he can have it.
So that was cool, and I didn't get to really talk to her, but Casey Fritz, our friend, was there with her husband, and I got to wave to her, so that was nice. But I don't know that she had early entry, so I think she just came in a little bit later and sat a few rows behind us.
I don't know what the capacity of Webster Hall was, but there were a lot of seats, and by the time 5:30 rolled around, they were pretty much all full. I think this was sold out, and definitely packed. So it was a very good audience, very good size audience.
And there was like a balcony level too, and it seemed packed up there from what I could see. But right as 5:30 rolled around, they got the show started. I think right on the dot. They started with a couple sponsor ads, just like, hey, subscribe to the New Yorker, hey, buy a Volkswagen,
Right.
Some random commercials for the sponsors. And then Andy Borowitz took the stage.
Andy came out. He took the stage. Of course, he had a few funny jokes and stuff.
Yeah.
He did mention that the sponsors wanted to ask you a couple things: how many people were actual New Yorker subscribers, and how many people actually took time to read the magazines. It was very funny stuff.
Yeah, I was never a subscriber to the New Yorker until I heard about this event, and he quickly signed us up for a subscription, and got the tickets, and hopefully they bring back Weird Al every year, because that's probably the only way I'm subscribing to a magazine in 2023 at this point.
Yeah, he did mention that they did go digital as well, so they are moving up with the times.
Yeah. And he did actually talk about that they will not be discussing Weird Al's 2022 film. And Dave, I know we were kind of talking about that. We assumed that they wouldn't be, just because of the SAG-AFTRA strike. And Andy said that he and Al are both SAG members, and they won't be promoting any struck work, so that's why they weren't talking about it. But he said that he's sure that once the Hollywood studios find out that Al and him didn't talk about the movie, that surely they will end the strike. So, so that was great.
All right, pressure's on you, Hollywood studios. Do what you need to do.
So then he introduced a little video montage before Al came out, and they played a couple of Al's hit music videos, not necessarily in order, because they started with Eat It, and then they went back in time to I Love Rocky Road, then Like a Surgeon, Smells Like Nirvana, Amish Paradise, and finally the last music video Weird Al has ever released, White and Nerdy. So real span of his entire career.
Yeah, it was pretty funny listening along to the audience. I mean, obviously, seeing the videos, we know we love these videos, so we've seen them a million times. But even just seeing them up, got a lot of laughs, and especially from the audience. I think maybe a few people hadn't seen them or hadn't seen them in a long time, because every time one of the new videos came on and one of the jokes played out, a lot of laughter from the audience. It was really fun.
Yeah, it's cool because I would love to see more of his videos with an audience, because seeing Weird with an audience or seeing UHF with an audience, it's fun to get that audience reaction to the jokes.
Oh yeah, for
sure. It was really neat, when something silly happens on screen, to not just think it's funny myself, but to hear everyone laugh. So that was right. Actually pretty neat.
All right, after the video montage ends, Weird Al came out and immediately climbed over his chair.
Yeah, he climbed over the back and dropped down. It was really funny. And immediately I noticed that he was wearing the same shirt that he wore in he was in some social media photos at one of the SAG-AFTRA WGA strikes, and I remember that shirt because I don't even know if we've talked about this, Dave, but someone was posting about that in our Facebook group.2000inch.com, and Jared was trying to figure out, where to get the shirt, and I found it, and he said that it was the fastest Weird Al shirt finding ever. Like, he said, I now have the record for the fastest turnaround of figuring out where Weird Al's shirt came from. So, I also took the honors at that time to name the shirt. So I can tell you definitively that Al was wearing the Periwinkle Glimmer shirt. And, although the shirt is not periwinkle or glimmery, that's what I named it. So
it was funny. I didn't make the connection to the earlier social media post that you were talking about, and I didn't remember ever seeing this shirt before, so I was sort of excited. I was going to send Jared a message and be like, "Hey, is this a new shirt?" But I'm kind of glad I didn't, because I would have been shamed. And he said, "No, Ethan found this shirt weeks ago."
Oh, you mean the Periwinkle Glimmer shirt, Dave? What was also pretty amazing is, when we've done the concert reviews, bonus episodes, we always talk about what Emo Phillips is drinking. I wanted to talk about what Al and Andy were drinking, because they were drinking Saratoga water. Saratoga, of course, is like right next door to where I live, so it was pretty funny that they were drinking, my hometown water down in New York City.
Very nice. And we have no idea if Steve was wearing sunglasses or regular glasses, because he was not at the event, as far as we know.
Although there were some special guests in the crowd, but we'll get to that in a little bit.
Yes.
Andy said that he figured there was a lot of nerds in the audience, so he figured that we would appreciate an origin story of Al, and basically started off the interview asking, if the rumor of Al getting traveling accordion lessons was true.
Right. He wanted to know if a traveling accordion salesman actually came to the house. And Al did clarify it wasn't necessarily a traveling accordion salesman, as it just was like a traveling music salesman who basically gave his parents two options. He could either play the accordion or he could play the guitar. And of course, Weird Al's parents made the right choice and let him play the accordion.
It is kind of funny to think about, like, if they chose guitar or nothing, what would we be doing today, Dave? What would we be doing right now?
We'd be talking about the great Weird Al architecture buildings that were being made.
That's true. It was pretty neat. I mean, they went through some childhood stuff, some college stuff.
Yep.
Mostly things that, we as super fans, know the story of, but it's still always really fun to hear Weird Al talk about it. And, the bits and pieces come out that maybe we haven't heard said that way or told in the context that they were told. So I really enjoyed it.
I enjoyed it very much. I thought Andy had a very good outline. He basically, like you said, he covered, Weird Al's childhood and, college years. And then he kind of went through album by album, which I thought was a really neat approach, and they would tell a little story about each album as they were going through. So it was pretty cool.
Yeah. And what was really interesting is some trivia that Andy came out with that I don't think Al was aware of, and I certainly wasn't aware of, was sort of the update on Chamillionaire.
Yeah, Chamillionaire, of course, who did the original song Ridin' Dirty, which Weird Al turned into White and Nerdy. And Andy was really adamant on letting us know where Chamillionaire was, letting us know what Chamillionaire was up to right now. So apparently Chamillionaire is not doing much rapping anymore, and he's now investing in tech companies. So there's your Chamillionaire update.
Yeah, he said that perhaps Weird Al inspired him to become nerdy with his parody. So I thought that was a really fun connection.
Yeah, like I mentioned, he went album by album, but for some reason they ended at Straight Outta Linwood. I think they ran out of time. So there was absolutely no mention of Alpocalypse or Mandatory Fun. And also notable by its absence, there was no mention of UHF or the UHF soundtrack.
Yeah, perhaps it was just for time, and I think maybe also no UHF because of the SAG-AFTRA strike.
That's possible,
but
yeah.
it was, it was still a good, overarch of the career up through 2006. Although they did talk about Weird Al's latest Grammy, which I think Andy said, "Oh, so you got a Grammy for designing a box or something."
Yeah,
like,
right.
You got
the latest Grammy was for the box set, so Andy was like, "Oh, so you got a Grammy for designing a box,"
which is kind of funny when you think about it that way.
Yeah, what's interesting is when they were going over their first album, is Andy had asked them about, how some artists go back and they re-record albums, and they did a whole Taylor Swift, type of joke and stuff like that.
Right.
But he specifically asked Al if he ever thought about going back and re-recording, his catalog, and specifically the first album. And Weird Al said that he would like to maybe at some point go back and re-record the first album, because of basically how fast and cheaply made it was.
Right.
He would like to give it the proper Weird Al treatment, give it but he never really committed to ever doing that, so that's still on the still out there whether he'll ever get a
He did say, though, he wouldn't pull a George Lucas and go back and change everything from his entire career. So
right.
That's good to know. It was also, a couple times throughout where Al was not 100% sure on his answer. And he's like, "Oh, you should ask, my manager, Jay Levy, who's in the audience." And he kept pointing into the audience. So while we never heard from Jay, it was cool to hear that he was in the audience and perhaps nodding or shaking his head throughout.
Yeah, it was funny because Weird Al kept pointing towards the very back of the theater for Jay Levy. So I kept turning around looking as far back as I could to see if I could see Jay. And it turns out that Jay was sitting relatively close to the stage. I did see him sitting after the end of the show, so I could confirm he was there. I did not get a chance to go over and interact with him or anything, but yes, I was able to visually confirm that Jay Levy was in fact in attendance, and he did get a shout out several times from both Andy and Al, so that was really nice.
And so the way that it was about an hour show, and about 45 minutes of that was Andy asking his prepared questions. And then about 15 minutes of that was getting questions from the audience. And so I mentioned the phone number they had up before the show, and then really throughout the 45 minutes of going through Al's career, they encouraged people to text in their questions. And so they asked seemingly not super curated. I think it was kind of just Andy picking random questions because it was just sort of on
right.
an iPad. But I think that was my favorite part of the show, because even the questions that aren't good questions, it's fun to watch Al and hear Al answer a dumb or obvious question, because he's always he's so quick and he's so funny.
Yeah, I don't think they were pre-screened before Andy got to see them. I think Andy just was kind of randomly picking out whichever one he thought was the best question. Sometimes I don't think Andy was reading the question ahead of time before he asked it, so there were some really weird ones in there. Specifically, there was one that just rambled on and on about public access television, and I don't even know what the question was. I don't even know if there was a question in there, but that was a very funny moment because Andy was just riffing on it, and Weird Al was confused as heck. He didn't know what was going on. Nobody in the audience knew what was going on. It was a lot of fun. That was one of my favorite questions.
Yeah, because Andy says this whole confused thing, and Al's just puzzled looking at him, and Andy's like, "Let me try and rewrite this for the guy," and then he tells it a different way, and Al just pauses, and he's like, "Yes." It was so great. And another one that I really loved is someone asked Al for some of his favorite vegan recipes. And Al said that his favorite vegan recipe is spoonful of peanut butter.
Yeah, Yes.
So good.
That was great. That was wonderful. That's now my favorite vegan recipe as well.
Me too. It's easy.
I love peanut butter. I could eat an entire jar of it.
So there was another audience question asking about writing a musical with Lin-Manuel Miranda. And I think we've sort of heard about this bits and pieces. He actually may even have mentioned it during our interview with him on 2000 Inch. But
Right.
Al and Lynn were working on a musical about the documentary King of Kong.
Yes, apparently that fizzled out, though, when the owner of the documentary would not give them permission. So that didn't go anywhere. But he did say that Lynn was also writing some other musical around the same time, some little musical called Hamilton. So I think Lynn will do fine with that.
Like I said, the audience questions, I think, were kind of the highlight of the show. But within the audience questions was my actual highlight of the show. And Dave, I think you can probably guess what this was. So Andy just starts reading a question, and I wish I thought to put my name on the questions. I just sent a couple questions in, but I didn't say who I was or anything. But so he's like, "Oh, this question comes from Tim from the Weird Pals podcast." And as soon as Andy said that, he said, "Oh, that reminds me, my friend Ethan Allman is here in the audience tonight." And Al goes, "Ethan Allman," and they point at me, and it was pretty amazing. What did you think of that, Dave?
That was a nice surprise. I was very excited to hear our podcast and you get a shout out as well. That was awesome. And I understand that our friend Casey happened to be capturing video at that point, and she's nice enough to send us the clip, and we're going to share that with you right now.
I should also say that my friend Ethan Ullman, who has the podcast, is also here in the audience.
So awesome.
Yeah, I was not expecting that.
No, not at all.
But it was really a fun show, and I'm really glad that we got to go to it.
Oh, yeah. I'm very happy we got to see the show. I'm very happy it was so close to my house. I'm very happy you got to come down and see it. I just wish it was a little bit longer. I mean, I understand, why they were under time constraints. They had other things going on later on that evening. But I wish it was a little longer than an hour. But other than that, it was a great, great time.
Totally. And lots of good friends. As we were getting up and leaving, of course, the whole process of when we go to a Weird Al event and we have 500 friends that we want to talk to, we slowly get kicked out. As we were slowly getting kicked out, I did notice on a different door, not the one that we came into the actual seating area, was a sign that said there was a filming in progress. One of those kind of generic, be aware you might be on film. So that gives me hope that we may see this event released somewhere. I know Paramount Plus was a sponsor of the event, so maybe this will be available on YouTube or on Paramount Plus or something. But it would be really cool to get to see it again and hear my shout out again in better quality.
Yeah, we'll definitely be looking for that. And obviously, if we hear anything about that, we'll let you know. And if anyone hears anything, please let us know.
Yes. Now, this was another cool treat. As we're leaving, I happened to catch Andy in the lobby as he was leaving, and got to talk to him for a few minutes. Of course, thanked him for the shout out, and did ask him. I said, what was the impetus for this event? And he said that basically the New Yorker said, "Hey, Andy, who do you want to interview this year at the festival?" And he said, "I want to interview Weird Al." So he asked Weird Al, and Al said yes. And I guess they flew out specifically for the event.
Very cool.
And then I guess, because they were out on the East Coast, gave a visit to their daughter Nina as well before heading back. So what a guy, that Weird Al, coming out and helping out my friend Andy Borowitz with an event.
Andy did stop by our little group as well. You brought him over. So it was really cool to get to meet Andy briefly for a second. He did ask us if we learned anything. And obviously, we had to let him know that we learned all about public access television, and we were very happy he asked that question. But yeah, and overall, I it was a great event. I obviously knew a lot of it, being a Weird Al super fan. You and I, we could probably answer many of those questions for Weird Al
Right.
if we needed to. But there were some, gems in there, so it was definitely worth attending.
Definitely.
And Andy was an incredible interviewer. I would not hesitate to go see another event which Andy is moderating. He was so much fun.
And I've seen his like solo show, and he's hilarious. He's just like one of the funniest guys, and he also, I think, is the creator of the show Fresh Prince of Bel-Air.
Yes.
So like he has a pretty incredible resume, and he does these satirical headlines for the New Yorker that I've been laughing at my whole life, because my dad like would always get his emails and then forward them to me, and so it was really cool, and he was really funny, and it was definitely a good choice pairing the two of them up. They really were great together.
It's funny you mentioned the satirical headlines, and Jackie was telling me that, she used to always be tricked by Andy's headlines and think they were real news stories. And then it took her like a moment, and then she's like, Andy Borowitz. He got me again. So definitely check out some of Andy's headlines.
It definitely, as the world has gotten wackier, it's harder to tell satire.
Right.
So before we left the city, though, we were pretty hungry, because we just had the pretzels and the two same dips at the billiards bar. So a couple of us went over to Shake Shack. And have you been to a Shake Shack before, Dave?
You know what? I've never actually been to a Shake Shack before, but it was a hamburger place. It wasn't that bad. And yeah, it was just a few of us. It was, you, Kate, me, Jackie, Vicky, and Ron. The six of us went over, and Shake Shack was maybe a block or two away, and we walked over there, decided to hang out. I know Ron, he was trying to catch a bus back to upstate New York that didn't leave till midnight, so he was very happy for to have somebody hang around with him for a while. Vicky also probably hadn't eaten since she had just come in on the train, so she was starving as well. And like you said, we hadn't had food in a while, so we all ate together at Shake Shack.
What was pretty neat is they had little kiosks where you could place the order yourself, and you have to pick up like a little plastic sign for your order, so they know what table you're sitting at. And so I went through all of them, and I found number 27. So Kate and I were order 27.
Yep.
And as we're heading out, it turns out Nancy had something unfortunate happen.
Yeah, so Nancy left immediately after the show because she was trying to catch a train back to Pennsylvania or wherever she was heading that was leaving at like 7:30 or 7:50 or something like that. So she didn't have a lot of time to get there. And it turns out that her Lyft driver ended up running late, and she got stuck in a lot of traffic. And she was texting Vicky that she didn't think she was going to make her train, and she wasn't sure that they would have another train out of the city. So it worked out that she did end up missing her train, all due to the Lyft driver's fault and traffic in New York City as well.
Yeah.
So she was kind of going to be stuck in New York City. So I did offer, well, we're still in the city. We'll come pick you up at Penn Station, and you're welcome to stay at my house, and we'll figure out how to get you back home.
Right.
Later. So right about as we were wrapping up at Shake Shack, she did text Vicky and say, "I need a place to stay, and we'll take you up on your offer." So we had to go pick up Nancy at the train station. And we're heading back to the car, and this is kind of an interesting story. Is we hand our ticket to the attendant at the parking garage, and when we came in, he had asked us, "What time do you think we're leaving?" We said, "We'll probably leave about 8 o'clock or so," assuming we were going out for dinner. And it's about a little after 8 at this point. And so he's running around, and he's like, "I can't find your car. It was the Subaru, right?" And we're like, yeah. And so he's just running all around. And then like about after 5 minutes, he goes, oh, it's right here. I put it outside for you because you said you were coming at 8 o'clock.
Oh,
So
man.
it was literally in front of the parking garage. We didn't see it because we weren't expecting to see our car out on the street.
Right.
Because we left it inside the parking garage, and he had totally forgot that he moved it. So that was kind of a fun moment.
Jeez. Well,
Yeah.
and so I guess we sort of set this up earlier, but if we hadn't gone to the city separately, there would not have been room to bring Nancy back. So it sort of was lucky that we had the two cars. Otherwise, Nancy would have been stranded, at least for a bit longer, to make the round trip out and back to the city.
Right. I wouldn't have left her stranded in the city. I would have gone and picked her back up. But yeah, it was worked out well, considering the circumstances. And both Vicky and Nancy came and stayed at my house. It didn't take us too long to pick her up at Penn Station, and it took us even quicker to get home after that. And then I briefly showed them my Weird Al collection. It was a little late at this point, so they got the highlights, but they did very much enjoy seeing it. And I know one thing they did have a lot of fun putting on Weird Al's old pair of glasses and commenting just how blind he really was, which is the reaction I get when most people put on those glasses. Oh my gosh, I didn't realize he was that blind.
You know what? As many times as I've been to your house and literally slept next to where you keep the glasses, I don't think I've ever put on Weird Al's old glasses.
Oh,
I don't think I have. Do you remember me doing that?
I don't know. I wasn't keeping track. I didn't know I needed to.
All right, next time we got to remember.
All right, next time we'll make sure we put a pair of Weird Al's glasses on your head.
Yes. Well, I'm glad it all worked out, and then I guess you brought them the next morning.
Yeah. The next morning, Nancy ended up having a 7 o'clock train out of Newark Penn Station, so I did drop them both off at the Newark Penn Station early in the morning. Vicky was leaving shortly after that, so they decided to go together. So it was late night for me and an early morning, but I would do it for Vicky and Nancy anytime.
Of course, yeah. It was so nice to get to see them and really get to see everyone. That was just a really fun event. And really nice day. Except, really nice day, not great weather-wise, but nice everything besides the weather.
Would have been nice if it wasn't raining, but the rain did hold off for most of the day. Most of the time we were in New York.
Yeah. So we have to talk about what happened the next day, because this was just by random chance. I saw this thing get announced, and I was like, oh, it's not going to be near me. And then I was like, oh, wait, I'm going to be in New Jersey. And what happened was Bob Odenkirk and his daughter Erin Odenkirk put together a book, and we're doing a mini sort of book signing tour. And it was only 20 minutes from your house, Dave. So I know you and Jackie are big, Better Call Saul and Breaking Bad fans. And I'm, of course, also an obsessed fan of Mr. Show. And, I think after Weird Al, Bob Odenkirk is my next ultimate favorite. I really have been a fan of him for a very long time, and I've never gotten to meet him. So I was just absolutely thrilled. So we got up early and we drove out to Ridgewood, New Jersey, and the book signing was set to be at 2:00, but we decided to grab some brunch first, and we went to this place called Le Café Pancake.
Yeah, so before we get into brunch, the event was at this place called Bookends. It's this little bookstore that's in Ridgewood, New Jersey, and they are known for putting on all these signing events, almost weekly. I would think they have a different book author come in, and they get some big names, Bob Odenkirk, and just all I think Arnold Schwarzenegger is going to be there soon as well. And
I saw that Millie Bobby Brown was there last week, and
it's
pretty
they
crazy.
Constantly are getting all these really, really big names, and they have all these posters up and of all past guests and things that have been there, and there's all these names that you will instantly recognize. And actually, I had seen Weird Al do a book signing at Bookends. I was in attendance of that, and it happened back in 2011 on February 2nd for his book When I Grow Up. So Weird Al's even been at Bookends in Ridgewood, New Jersey.
That's so awesome.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. They have up on their wall, besides the posters and from the previous signings and stuff, they have like this sort of, I guess, wall of fame of all the different authors they've had in there, split out by year. And Weird Al's name is up under the 2011 guests. And I was looking for him, and I didn't see him immediately because I was expecting to see Weird Al Yankovic, with Weird Al in quotes, the proper correct spelling of Weird Al Yankovic. But no, they just listed him as Weird Al.
Yeah.
So I totally glassed over it. I'm like, oh, he's not there. And then Jackie's like, yes, he is. He's right there. They just list him as Weird Al. You were looking for Weird Al Yankovic.
Yeah, and they had him right on the in the 2011 area. He was the top name right in the top center.
Yep.
So it was very cool that he got such great billing. I do want to briefly go back to Le Cafe Pancake because you go to a place and the name is freaking called the Pancake Cafe. I ordered pancakes and they were not that good.
Yeah, I was not impressed with the pancakes there either. I ordered some egg breakfast, which everything comes with a pancake, so I did get a pancake as well, and yeah, it wasn't all that great, honestly.
Yeah, I should have got the eggs. I did get like a side of eggs, and those were really good. But the pancake, if you go to Le Cafe Pancake, do not recommend the pancakes.
There's also, since we're talking about what happened at Le Cafe Pancake, they also had apparently no beverages for sale. On their menu, they had beverage. The entire beverage section was covered over with tape, so you could not see or order any beverages. But I guess you had to secretly know to order beverages.
Right. The secret menu.
The secret menu, because we did order beverages, and they did bring them out to us, but we just had no idea what we could order.
Yeah, we're like, do you have this? And they're like, yeah. We're like, okay.
All right, well, it's not on the menu.
I think so. Did we get to the bookstore around like 11:30? Does that sound right? And there were already like probably 10 or 15 people outside waiting for the 2:00 signing.
Yeah, there was a short line out there already, and I guess they block off part of the parking lot, and they just have this makeshift little queue that people line up in. But yeah, there were people already sitting out there in lawn chairs, and apparently this is talking to somebody in line later, this is something that people do. They just come and they just meet all the different celebrities that do books. It's sort of like, that's kind of what people do on the weekends or whatever in Ridgewood.
It's kind of neat.
It's pretty cool. Yeah, it's awesome.
I would definitely, if I had a bookstore near me that did these really cool celebrity events, I'd definitely go to, more than just, Weird Al and Bob Odenkirk maybe.
Yeah, and you think about it, somebody I was overhearing talking in line was, who does this regularly, was saying that it's a really good deal because for the price of the book, you get to, meet the celebrity, get their autograph, and get a picture with them. When that's something like at a Comic-Con, you would pay hundreds of dollars for the same experience. So it's totally worth it, if somebody you're interested in to check them out at maybe a bookstore or a smaller bookstore near you. And of course, support the local bookstores in your area. Yeah,
it was really it was a great deal. I mean, I think it was only like with tax like $25 for the book.
Yeah,
and I think that's pretty much what the book costs. So you're just buying the book, you get to meet Bob Odenkirk. I asked the bookstore people, like, it's 11:30 now. I really don't want to sit outside that whole time. I want to get some lunch. What time do you recommend? And they said an hour early is what they recommend. So we came back around 1:00, and there was probably 60 people ahead of us at that point.
Yeah, there's a pretty good line that had formed by that point. So we were in line, and I don't think we waited too long outside. Shortly after they started moving the line, well, I guess we did wait outside. We didn't wait in the parking lot. They brought us to the front of the bookstore and lined us up, and we're letting people in, a few at a time, because we later found out that there was a second line inside, which queued around the entire
what is with this weekend, Dave?
The bookstore,
lining up to go inside to line up again. That happened 2 days in a row. You go in and you go down the stairs, and I think it was probably 1:45 that they started really letting people in. So a little before 2, which was nice, and it wasn't bad. I mean, once you're actually inside and downstairs.
It went quickly,
it didn't go. They kept things moving. They obviously do this quite a bit, so they have a flow.
They have a great system.
But it's neat because they have the whole downstairs is just covered in autographed posters and stuff of people who've been there. So it's like kind of cool to look around. Like I saw 2 different ones from Guy Fieri and. Just a bunch. I didn't see Weird Al. We looked really, really closely to see if Weird Al was hung up down there.
I saw Jamie Lee Curtis and a couple other. It was pretty. It was like Rebecca said. There's a lot of celebrities, a lot of cool authors that were there. There was a whole stack of posters that were leaning up against the wall. Probably if you go there, maybe on a day where there's not a book signing, maybe they'll let you look through them or something. But we did not see Weird Al's. And Jack even pointed out that up behind the main desk on the first floor, there were other posters that were leaning up against each other. I mean, they've been doing this since at least 2011, probably many years before that. So they have a lot of posters. They can't display them all. We did not see Weird Al's. Maybe next time we go, we'll see Weird Al's.
Yes. So I don't think we actually even talked about the book. So this book, it's written by Bob Odenkirk, and the illustrations are done by his daughter, Erin Odenkirk, and it's called Xylit and Other Important Rhymes. And, I guess the story goes when his kids were growing up, Bob would write these, silly poems and stuff and tell them at bedtime, and sort of kept a collection of them over the years and decided to turn it into a book and, collaborate with his daughter Erin, and I think even his son Nate made some contributions to the book. So really kind of sweet that it's this his family made this book together.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. I was flipping through it, and I know Jack was reading it while we were in line. And they're short little stories, like maybe a page or so. It's definitely like a kid's book, I would say.
Yeah.
But it's a lot of fun. They're very fun ones. There's one that's one about dog poop, so it's fun, one about building a fort, and stuff. And they just sort of have little twists at the end, which are a lot of fun. Definitely fun to read and check out. Read it to your favorite kid before they go to bed, or read it to yourself. It's definitely worth picking up.
Now, I got to tell you what I brought with me to this signing event, because I've been a major Mr. Show fan for a long time. And back when I was in high school and I was, on eBay buying a lot of Weird Al stuff, I also would obsessively search for Mr. Show stuff, which was really hard to find Mr. Show stuff because it was, fairly obscure, but also because, MRSHOW shows up in a lot of different things. So when you searched Mr. Show on eBay, you'd get all sorts of nonsense. So, when you're in high school, you have some extra free time. So I actually one day came across someone selling a prop from Mr. Show. And if you've ever seen Mr. Show, season 1, episode 2, they do a sketch about Globochem, this kind of overarching company, and how they're trying to rebrand it to be more family friendly. And they have this little mascot called Pit Pat. And in the show, they have this little stuffed animal, Pit Pat, of the character. And I own that actual Pit Pat. So it's been, in my safekeeping for at least 15, 16 years. And I brought it with me. And when I showed Bob, he just he was speechless. His mouth dropped open and he was just like, what is this? And I was like, it is the actual Pit Pat. I bought it from someone who worked on the show. And he was just he was completely stunned. And he was like, I need a picture of this on my phone. And so he gave his phone to someone who was working there was like, "Can you take this on my phone too?" So like I posed for a picture with him and his daughter and Pit Pat for his personal phone, and then got one on my phone, and it was really cool getting to share that experience with Bob and Aaron. And my intention was just to get a picture with Pit Pat. I didn't want to get it signed, but Bob's like, "Do you want me to sign it?" And it's kind of conflicting because it's like, Bob's offering to sign it, and he'd already signed the books I bought, and I was like, I don't know. And his daughter's like, no, you can't sign it. You can't sign it. That'll ruin it. And then Bob's like, well, what if I sign the back? And I was like, yeah, that would be okay. And his daughter's like, no, Dad, you can't. So he did not end up signing it, and I'm glad. I didn't want it signed, so. But peer pressure. One of my idols is pressuring me to have it signed. What am I supposed to do?
Yeah, it was really cool to get to witness Bob's reaction, and you pulling out Pit Pat and showing him for the first time. That was a really special moment, and yeah, it was really cool. And Bob was genuinely surprised and very happy to see Pit Pat again.
Yeah.
So I'm glad I was there for that moment, and I'm glad Bob was there for that moment.
Yes.
To see that haul. And, I'm glad you, after all these years, got to bring Pit Pat and bring him back to Bob and have this wonderful story that you can share for many, many years.
Well, I got to meet Bob, and then Kate got to meet Bob and Aaron, and then you got to meet Bob and Aaron, and I'm still like in shock, like trying to, compose myself. And I hear Bob like saying something about Weird Al, and you're like, oh yeah, I host a podcast about Weird Al. I'm like, what is Dave saying?
All right. So what happened is I walk up, and you have your book, and basically you present your book to them. They sign it, and Bob was really nice. And he said, I didn't really have much. I went into, like the celebrity freeze, you're standing in front of somebody and you want to tell them so much, and then your mind goes blank. So I'm just standing there with a blank look on my face, and I don't know what to say. And Bob, says, oh, hey, what's your name? Oh, my name's Dave. He says, okay, nice to meet you, Dave. We do the fist bump and everything, and him and Aaron sign the book, and, they turn around and take a picture, and everything. And then as I'm walking away, someone, I guess, who was either with Bob's entourage or with the bookstore points out my shoes to Aaron, and I'm wearing Weird Al themed shoes, and Aaron just starts freaking out, and she gets all excited. She says, oh my gosh, are those Weird Al shoes? And then Bob picked up on it, and he started noticing my shoes, and he starts pointing at them. They both get really excited about my shoes, and then they start talking about, oh my gosh, Weird Al, and then Bob's like, isn't he the greatest? And we're just nerding out about Weird Al, the three of us together. And so it was awesome, that moment happened. That's something I'll remember is Bob, Aaron, and myself just nerding out about Weird Al. It was really cool.
It was so incredible. I'm so glad that it just worked out that they happened to be in town and that we were able to go. And like I said, as soon as I found out that it was happening and that I was going to be in New Jersey, I just bought the tickets, and it sold out really quick. But I happened to see it right at the right time, and I'm so glad that we got to share that experience. And I got to do my Mr. Show nerding out. You got to do Weird Al nerding out. I got to vicariously nerd out about Weird Al through Bob. It was so awesome.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun, and I'm glad you decided to purchase extra books so Jackie and I could go meet Bob and Aaron as well. That was a great experience. I'm glad I got to share it with you as well.
So what was actually pretty cool is in our podcast Facebook group, our listener Will Bozarth posted that he was at the New York City event, and I was like, oh man, too bad we didn't see you. It would have been great to say hi. Well, we did run into Will the next day at the Bob Odenkirk event. And so we got to talk to him, and we got some pictures with him, and he obviously, was thrilled to meet Bob as well. He's a big Breaking Bad fan, and he got like some Mr. Show stuff signed. So that was really cool to get to see Will.
Yeah, it was awesome. Always great to see Will. Always great to see listeners of the podcast. All right. Well, sadly, at that point, Ethan, you had to head back to New York, and I had to head back home. So our weekend was over, but oh my gosh, it was pretty stinking majestic.
Pretty stinking majestic indeed. And Dave, you know what else is pretty stinking majestic?
I do, and that is this episode is brought to you in part by Discover Darwin, promoting tourism in Darwin, Minnesota. Not only is historic Darwin, Minnesota beautiful, it's also not haunted.
By daylight, Darwin, Minnesota is your standard mid-American small town.
But by night, well, it's also your standard mid-American small town.
Well, that's because, based on our research, there have been exactly 0 reported ghost sightings in the town of Darwin, Minnesota.
Now, visitors to Darwin can rest easy because the nearest reported ghost sighting was 6 miles away in the neighboring Litchfield.
And as we were all taught back in school, ghosts are unable to travel more than 5.5 miles. So you're totally safe.
Oh, stop it. You're just making that up so people feel better. There is absolutely no scientific evidence to support the claim that spirits and ghosts can travel over long distances.
Are you really bringing science into a Discover Darwin ad?
Yes, sorry.
So visit Darwin, Minnesota on your next not-so-spooky expedition. Discover Darwin, more than just the twine ball. And after you visit Darwin, Minnesota, be sure to attempt to visit discoverdarwin.biz.
Dave and Ethan's 2000 Inch Weird Al podcast is brought to you absolutely free thanks to our incredible sponsors, Burrito, Wizard Burger, Jackson Scoggins, and Discover Darwin. Our podcast is also supported by everyone else in our Patreon family, with very special thanks to our amazing close personal friend level Patreon supporters. Matt, Kenneth, Allison, Ajax, Blair, Kev, Ron, Scotto, Gus and Alicia, Zach, Dana B, UH Jeff, Adriana, Jake, Javier, Zeb, and also thanks to Vicky and everyone else in our pretty stinking majestic Patreon family.
If you enjoy our family-friendly Weird Al podcast, please consider supporting us at patreon.com/2000inch. There are awesome benefits like getting your name on the podcast, your own private RSS feed, which gives you early access to each and every bonus episode, and the self-satisfaction of doing something important with your otherwise pitiful, meaningless existence.
And guess what? If you join right now, you'll be the very first to hear each and every one of our remaining brand new, ridiculously self-indulgent bonus episodes the instant that they drop. And also do not forget to check out our official merchandise shop over at shop.2000inch.com. All proceeds from purchases go directly towards supporting our podcast.
We love hearing from our listeners and other Weird Al fans, so be sure to join our Facebook community at group.2000inch.com, and be sure to visit our Discord server for even more riveting Weird Al and Red Rum to Goody related conversations. You can find both of them linked on our website, as well as information about past episodes and guests over at 2000inch.com or weirdalpodcast.com.
And while you're on the website, make sure you click on Ridiculously Self-Indulgent bonus episodes and follow along with our adventures on tour. And also click on Black and White and Weird All Over bonus episodes and follow along our special series where author John Bermuda Schwartz walks us through his first book, page by page and picture by picture.
Keep up on new episodes, podcast news, and events by following at 2000inch on Facebook, X, and Instagram. And be sure to subscribe everywhere you listen to podcasts so you don't miss a single episode. Not only does subscribing help the podcast, but all the artwork hanging in your den will be replaced by naked pictures of Ernest Borgnine. You're welcome in advance. Plus, we also love it. We receive voicemail via our official, patent pending, 27-hour-a-day podcast hotline 347 Spatula, as seen in the 2023 Ringo Award-winning graphic novel, The Illustrated Al, The Songs of Weird Al Yankovic. That number is 347-772-8852. Give it a call, and you might even hear your message in a future episode.
For this episode, we wish to thank Andy Borowitz, Bob Odenkirk, Aaron Odenkirk, Ron Jr., Jeff McClelland, Tim from the Weird Pals podcast, Casey Fritz, Anonymous, and Pit Pat. Thank you to the Grammy Award-winning Jim Kimo West for our incredible podcast theme song, and thank you to the Emmy-nominated Weird Al Yankovic, as this podcast probably would not exist without him. And a big thank you to all of you, our loyal listeners, subscribers, Patreon supporters and sponsors, and everyone else who makes our podcast possible.
Thank you for choosing Dave and Ethan's 2000-inch Weird Al podcast. And until next time, remember to gill and chill, keep listening to Weird Al, and stay cheesy.
You know, I'm a little worried now that we brought it up earlier that a ghost might try to haunt Darwin, Minnesota.
Oh, Dave, I wouldn't worry about it. The people of Darwin can always just call the Ghostbusters if they need to.
Yeah, you know, that number should be in everyone's speed dial, along with the 347 spatula hotline number.
And what kind of ghosts are being sighted in Litchfield anyways?
Well, they're shadow people, and they move among the silos.
Ooh, spooky.
I know, right? The anonymous ghost reporter even said, quote, "I'm not crazy. I had friends of mine confirm it," end quote.
They confirmed the shadow people, or they confirmed that they're not crazy?
The jury's still out on that one.
That was Dave and Ethan's 2000-inch Weird Al podcast, episode 208-inch.
White and nerdy, before and after, it was cool.
Take it from me,